intimate association with some of the chief business "geniuses" of that paradise of traders and usurers, the United States, reported in his old age that he had never heard a single one of them say anything worth hearing. These were vigorous and masculine men, and in a man's world they were successful men, but intellectually they were all blank cartridges. There is, indeed, fair ground for arguing that, if men of that kidney were generally intelligent, they would never succeed at their gross and driveling concerns; that their very capacity to master and retain such balderdash as constitutes their stock in trade is proof of their inferior mentality. The notion is certainly supported by the familiar incompetency of first-rate men for what are called practical concerns. One could not think of Aristotle or Beethoven multiplying 3,472,701 by 99,999 without making a mistake. Nor could one think of him remembering the range of this or that railway share for 2 years, or the number of tenpenny nails in a hundredweight, or the freight on lard from Galveston to Rotterdam. And by the same token, one could not imagine him expert at billiards, or at grouse shooting, or at golf, or at any of the other idiotic games at which what are called successful men commonly divert themselves. In his great study of British genius, Havelock Ellis found that an incapacity for such petty expertness was visible in almost all first-rate men. They are bad at tying cravats; they do not understand the fashionable card games; they are puzzled by bookkeeping; they know nothing of party politics. In brief, they are inert and impotent in the very fields of endeavor that see the average men's highest performances, and are easily surpassed by men who in actual intelligence are about as far below them as the Simidae. This lack of skill at manual and mental tricks of a trivial character, which must inevitably appear to a barber or a dentist as stupidity, and to a successful haberdasher as downright imbecility, is a character that men of the first class share with women of the first, second, and even third classes. There is at the bottom of it, in truth, something unmistakably feminine. Its appearance in a man is almost invariably accompanied by the other touch of femaleness that I have described. Nothing, indeed, could be plainer than the fact that women, as a class, are sadly deficient in the small expertness of men as a class. One seldom, if ever, hears of them succeeding in the occupations which bring out such expertness most lavishly; for example, tuning pianos, repairing clocks, practicing law, that is, matching petty tricks with some other lawyers, painting portraits, keeping books, or managing factories, despite the circumstance that the great majority of such occupations are well within their physical powers, and that few of them offer any very formidable social barriers to female entrance. There is no external reason why women shouldn't succeed as operative surgeons. The way is wide open, the rewards are large, and there is a special demand for them on grounds of modesty. Nevertheless, not many women graduates in medicine undertake surgery, and it is rare for one of them to make a success of it. There is, again, no external reason why women should not prosper at the bar, or as editors of newspapers, or as managers of the lesser sort of factories, or in the wholesale trade, or as hotel keepers. The taboos that stand in the way are very small force. Various adventurous women have defied them with impunity. Once the door is entered, there remains no special handicap within. But, as everyone knows, the number of women actually practicing these trades and professions is very small, and few of them have attained to any distinction in competition with men. 4. Why women fail. The cause thereof, as I say, is not external, but internal. It lies in the same disconcerting apprehension of the larger realities, the same impatience with the paltry and meretricious, the same disqualification from mechanical routine and empty technique which one finds in the higher varieties of men. Even in the pursuits which, by the custom of Christendom, are especially their own, women seldom show any of that elaborately conventionalized and half-automatic proficiency which is the pride and boast of most men. It is a commonplace of observation, indeed, that a housewife who actually knows how to cook, or who can make her own clothes with enough skill to conceal the fact from the most casual glance, or who is competent to instruct her children in the element of morals, learning, and hygiene, it is a platitude that such a woman is very rare indeed, and that when she is encountered she is not usually esteemed for her general intelligence. This is particularly true in the United States, where the position of women is higher than in any other civilized or semi-civilized country, and the old assumption of their intellectual inferiority has been most successfully challenged. The American dinner table, in truth, becomes a monument to the defective technique of the American housewife. The guest who respects his esophagus, invited to feed upon its discordant and ill-prepared victuals, evades the experience as long and as often as he can, and resigns himself to it, as he might resign himself to being shaved by a paralytic. Nowhere else in the world have women more leisure and freedom to improve their minds, and nowhere else do they show a higher level of intelligence or take part more effectively in affairs of the first importance. But nowhere else is there worse cooking in the home, or a more inept handling of the whole domestic economy, or a larger dependence upon the aid of external substitutes, by men provided, for the skill that is wanted where it theoretically exists. It is surely no mere coincidence that the land of the emancipated and enthroned woman is also the land of canned soup, of canned pork and beans, of whole meals in cans, and of everything else ready-made. And nowhere else is there a more striking tendency to throw the whole business of training the minds of children upon professional teachers, and the whole business of instructing them in morals and religion upon so-called Sunday schools, and the whole business of developing and caring for their bodies upon playground experts, sex hygienists, and other such professionals, most of them mountebanks. In brief, women rebel, often unconsciously, sometimes even submitting all the while, against the dull, mechanical tricks of the trade that the present organization of society compels them to practice for a living, and that rebellion testifies to their intelligence. If they enjoyed and took pride in those tricks, and showed it by diligence and skill, they would be on all fours with such men as are head waiters, ladies' tailors, schoolmasters, or carpet beaters, and proud of it. The inherent tendency of any woman above the most stupid is to evade the whole obligation, and, if she cannot actually evade it, to reduce its demands to the minimum. And when some accident purges her, either temporarily or permanently, of the inclination to marriage, of which much more anon, and she enters into competition with men in the general business of the world, the sort of career that she commonly carves out offers additional evidence of a mental peculiarity. In whatever calls for no more than an invariable technique and a feeble chicanery, she usually fails. In whatever calls for independent thought and resourcefulness, she usually succeeds. Thus she is almost always a failure as a lawyer, for the law requires only an armament of hollow phrases and stereotyped formulae, and a mental habit which puts these phantasms above sense, truth, and justice. And she is almost always a failure in business, for business in the main is so foul a compound of trivialities and rogueries that her sense of intellectual integrity revolts against it. But she is usually a success as a sick nurse, for that profession requires ingenuity, quick comprehension, courage in the face of novel and disconcerting situations, and above all, a capacity for penetrating and dominating character. And wherever she comes into competition with men in the arts, particularly on those secondary planes where simple nimbleness of mind is unaided by the master strokes of genius, she holds her own invariably. The best and most intellectual, that is, most original and enterprising play actors are not men, but women, and so are the best teachers and blackmailers, and a fair share of the best writers and public functionaries and executants of music. In the demi-monde one will find enough acumen and daring, and enough resilience in the face of special difficulties, to put the equipment of any exclusively male profession to shame. If the work of the average man required half of the mental agility and readiness of resource of the work of an average prostitute, the average man would be constantly on the verge of starvation. 5. The thing called intuition. Men, as everyone knows, are disposed to question the superior intelligence of women. Their egoism demands the denial, and they are seldom reflective enough to dispose of it by logical and evidential analysis. Moreover, as we shall see a bit later on, there is a certain specious appearance of soundness in their position. They have forced upon women an artificial character which well conceals their real character, and women have found it profitable to encourage the deception. But though every normal man thus cherishes the soothing unction that he is the intellectual superior of all women, and particularly of his wife, he constantly gives the lie to his pretension by consulting and deferring to what he calls her intuition. that is